right, this is the second of the two screencasts on Fanny Fern, and we're going to take a look at this last text, a law more nice than just. We've been talking about how Fern was really a pioneer in kind of dispelling the social norms and gender bias in the mid 19th century, where, women were treated as inferior to men, and this is just another example of that. What we have here is she's actually just musing about an article that she read in the New York Ledger. It was originally printed on July the 10th of 1858. Emma Wilson was arrested yesterday for wearing men's apparel. Which apparently at the time women could be punished for dressing like a man. Now, dressing like a man in the sense that wearing pants, wearing boots, and wearing anything other than what women were expected to wear at the time, which was a dress and petticoats and that kind of thing. So she's questioning why this is an actionable offense. And I think that is very strange as a woman in today's time. I think it's very strange that at one point in time that was considered a punishable offense. Today it's nothing for women to wear pants and dress, in the sense like a man, which now we don't see it that way. We're very liberal in our views on that, on gender inequality and gender bias and that kind of thing. So she's humorously attacking that ideal that, she's like, what's the harm in it? She says, think of the old maids and weep who have to stay at home evening after evening, when if they provided themselves with a coat, pants, and a hat, they might go abroad instead of sitting there with their noses flattened against the window pane, looking vainly for the coming man. Think of the married women who stay at home after their day's toil is done, waiting wearily for their thoughtless truant husbands, when they might be taking the much needed independent walk in trousers, which custom forbids, to petticoats. And this, I fancy, may be the secret of this famous law. Who knows? It wouldn't be pleasant for some of them to be surprised men by the touch on the shoulder from some dapper young fellow whose familiar treble voice belied his corduroys. That's it now. What a fool I was not to think of it, not to remember that men who make the laws make them to meet all these little emergencies. So the men who made laws at the time, it's the mid-1900s, obviously made them in their favor. And gender bias is really commonplace. Obviously, if there was a law like this, that women could be punished and even arrested for wearing men's clothing, women are considered inferior to men, and their role was really to stay in the kitchen, take care of the kids, and look pretty while doing it. God forbid, they dress for comfort, or even more so, write or speak about the things that were not within a woman's domain, that we saw her address in male criticism on ladies' books. So she says, everybody knows what an everlasting drizzle of rain we have had lately, but nobody but a woman who lives on fresh air and outdoor exercise, knows the thraldom of taking her daily walk through a 3 weeks rain, with skirts to hold up and an umbrella to hold down and puddles to skip over and gutters to walk round, and all the times in a fright lest in an unguarded moment her calves should become visible to some of those rainy day philanthropists who are interested in the public study of female anatomy. She's criticizing, I love to walk outside. I love to be outside. I haven't been able to do it for 3 weeks because, God forbid, I hold up my skirts while I'm trying to skirt through puddles and walk around gutters and get my legs wet. God forbid somebody see my calves. And so she says, one evening, after a long rainy day of scribbling, when my nerves were in double twisted knots, and I felt as if myriads of little ants were leisurely traveling all over me, and all for the want of the walk, which is my daily salvation. I stood at the window, looking at the slanting, persistent rain, and took my resolve. I'll do it, said I, audibly, planting my slipper upon the carpet. Do what? Asked Mr. Fern, looking up from a big book. This is her third husband, the one that we discussed, that was a big proponent of her. He fought to print her texts against her brother's knowledge, and really kind of helped solidify her career, and honestly became one of the biggest reasons why, she finally married somebody who was not threatened by her as a woman writer, and championed her writing. She says, put on a suit of your clothes and take a tramp with you. And of course, her husband, this good natured man, says, you dare not. You are a little coward, only saucy on paper. And so she runs upstairs. She puts on his clothes, and obviously they're too big. And so she has to pin and tuck and try to get them. And her husband finds this very funny, laughing at her. And she says, was that to hinder me? Of course not. She pins the clothes up, and all the loose clothing, and she puts her hair underneath a cap, and they go outside. They go out together, and they take a walk, and they take a walk in the rain, and she's so enthralled by the freedom for her to walk around outside in pants, and not having to worry about getting her dress wet, her petticoats wet, and she doesn't see why there's such a big deal about this whole thing that causes women to get arrested. She says, now, if any male or female Miss Nancy, I'm thinking that's the 19th century equation of a Karen, who reads this, feel shocked, let him. Any woman who likes may stay at home during a 3 weeks rain till her skin look like parchment and her eyes like those of a dead fish, or she may go out and get a consumption dragging around wet petticoats. I won't. I positively declare I won't. I shall begin evenings when that suit is made, and take private walking lessons with Mr. Fern, and they who choose may crook their backs at home for fashion, and then send for the doctor to straighten them. I prefer to patronize my shoemaker and tailor. I have as good a right to preserve the healthy body God gave me as if I were not a woman. She says, I have just as much right to enjoy my walks without the hindrance of the woman, that, first of all, the prying eyes of society that tell me what I have to wear. I have just as much right to that as a man does. And so very critical, in a very humorous way, of that whole silly idea that women were not to be caught dead in men's clothing. So we take a look at that now, and we think, wow, can't even imagine a time like that even existed. We kind of take it for granted. And so I think that puts a new perspective on, for a woman, I think that puts a new perspective on our freedoms that we do enjoy. And even if there is still some gender inequality and some gender bias in the workplace, or in education, in whatever avenues, that, there was a time where this was the life we would have been subjected to as a woman, as opposed to, the smaller issues that we see now. So I think that this is just an interesting way, just such admiration for Fanny Fern, and her her pioneering women's rights and women's equality here. Strong, independent, single mom, who rose out of the situation that she was in and became successful, and did so in a way. She just became such an inspiration to women writers, and opened up so many avenues for women writers, even today.